members of the public for comment, but we do have a presentation from John Butterworth, who's with the City of Charleston. Hey, John.
Hi. How's everyone? Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Thank you so much for presenting today. We're excited to hear what you guys are working on.
Sure, of course. Well, thank you for having me all. Thank you to Jessica for the invitation to talk with you all today. I was telling Ricky right before we jumped on here that I actually interned at the City of Morgantown Planning Department in 2007 or so. So thank you for having me back. I'll be a repeat customer, I guess. So I wanted to talk to you all about just what's happening in Charleston. Forgive the weird ceiling mural behind me. I'm in a hotel room in Columbus, Ohio for the Ohio Land Bank Association Conference, which in years to come I would strongly encourage staff members or board members to attend. It's our friends in Ohio are a good bit ahead of us in a lot of the land banking sort of initiatives. So it's a great way to learn about where we can and should head with this work. So I can either talk off the top of my head, or I can throw a PowerPoint up. Is there a preference in the room about what that would look like?
Whatever's better for you. PowerPoint might be good if you have visuals.
Okay, sure. Let me share that real quick. Bear with me. Teams is. Let's see there. Okay. No, that's the wrong tab. Hold on a second. There we go. Okay. Can you guys see the PowerPoint okay?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, I guess one of the first things to note, and I would be interested to hear what the situation is in Morgantown. Our land use agency, obviously they're created by the local unit of government, but ours is, from a board composition perspective, really closely aligned with the city and with the administration. Our board is composed of the mayor or their designee, city manager, 2 members of city council, and 3 citizen members. And then we've got some ex officio folks, staff members, city attorney, our planning director, our director, block grant department, and ours is called Mayor's Office of Economic and Community Development, and our building commissioner. So I'd be glad to hear what you all chose to do in Morgantown from a board composition perspective. I will say that since our formation in 2019, we did change one very slight aspect of the composition of the board. The city attorney was formerly a voting member, and then now as an ex officio, we added a 3rd citizen member. And so that was definitely, we found that the city attorney is really important to be there as far as a consultant, just a counselor about the activities, but we wanted more citizen participation and representation on the board. So, much like you all, I'm sure, have discussed in your meetings, this situation in Morgantown is going to be quite different than maybe a lot of communities in West Virginia. Here in Charleston, we are a community that is shrinking population-wise. My hope is, fingers crossed, that we are kind of at the bottom of the trough of the wave. Population is always cyclical, right? But my hope is that we have shrunk as much as we're going to shrink, and the work that we're facing now in Charleston is really trying to reconstruct, rebuild, certain parts of town to right size our city for the sort of new normal of our population. Just for context, Charleston sort of topped out at 85,000 in the 1950s and 1960s and has been declining ever since. A lot of that has to do with suburbanization and the other sort of, macro forces. It's also important to point out that during that same time frame, like so many communities in the country, Charleston was redlined. Charleston, had active urban renewal areas that led to displacement of residents of color, immigrant populations within the city. And so, we talk in our office in the planning department a lot about how, for decades, the policy of city government, but also federal government, state government, was really sort of a hostility to housing, or at least existing housing stock. We put so much effort into creating building new in far-flung or suburban areas that we certainly see that every day in Charleston, so many places around the state we have shrunk, and it's no surprise. We've removed a lot of housing units, but land banking generally, right, is this idea that we can, complete the recycling life cycle of land within our community. And in a place like Morgantown, I would guess that development pressure in Morgantown and in the region around Morgantown, I'm sure is going to take care of a lot of reuse of property, but land banking can be an important tool for conservation and can be an important tool for affordable housing and workforce housing. So I think, are doing a little bit of that in Charleston, despite the fact that we do not have demand like you guys have up there in the region. But yeah, we're trying to really sort of catalyze and build a market for new housing, whereas you guys are maybe trying to steer the market a little bit and focus on affordable housing. So that's one of the things I would love to hear from you guys too, is what you're doing with, or want to do with sort of the development pressure that is happening in your town. So, like any land bank, land banking generally, and in our own enabling legislation here in West Virginia, is the acknowledgement that one of the major things we're trying to do is maintain the tax base and return property that has fallen out of taxability, I guess, and getting back on the tax books, right? This is about preserving the essential funding that goes to municipal services, public safety, police, fire, infrastructure, all those schools, right? I mean, if we are not taking a proactive approach, certainly in a constricting population place like Charleston, we can't just let that happen. And so one of the most fundamental things is we're trying to return property to the tax books. And in the meantime, we're also trying to assemble that property to maximize its development potential. We're trying to, find a way to clear up the barriers that have happened on this property. I don't know what the picture is for tax delinquency in Morgantown, but even if there are fairly few parcels that are tax delinquent, they got that way not by accident, right? There are probably airship issues that occur with them, or they've just got sort of negative value in the marketplace. And so I frequently say to our developer friends, and we have been trying to build those relationships, we're not trying to eat their lunch. We are not trying to interject in places where the private sector is going to take care of it. And we are trying to address things that the private market wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. And so I suspect that in certain areas of Morgantown, that can certainly come into play as well. But your private sector does see the value equation in returning stuff all by itself. So here in Charleston, we have been, really kind of dealing with the property decline section of the population loss, right? So we've got lots of property that enters into airship. The longtime resident or owner is deceased. The family perhaps lives out of staying or out of town, or just doesn't have the means or capacity or desire to do anything with the property, and it falls into significant decline. We've had really, significant demolition program for about 10 years now, but our current administration has really leaned in to emphasizing that. We have to remove unsafe structures, we know this, but, in the classic sort of recycling idea, right, we weren't doing much until the Land Reuse Agency was established to sort of, close that loop and return property to productive reuse. Getting rid of a dangerous and burned out house, super good thing, we know it needs to happen, but how do we actually use that property now as an asset to spur redevelopment rather than just having it sit there and be something that we have to, mow or pick trash off of because it's still abandoned. And, doing that in as quickly as possible, a manner as we can, is going to help, maintain that tax revenue, but more importantly, it's going to help neighbors feel safer. It's going to slowly and surely increase property values, stabilize neighborhoods, make it so existing owners feel like investing in their property is a good economic decision. Because lots of our neighborhoods feel people are a little apprehensive to continue investing in their property. I remember speaking to one resident, and she's like, I'm never going to renovate my kitchen. I'll deal with the 1950s cabinets because, I'll never get the money back if I do that. I want to change her mind about the stability of her neighborhood and her ability to invest in her property and get that money back someday through equity. Here in Charleston, we've sort of taken, and this has shifted a little bit, it always will, and I'm sure you guys have shifted your frame of reference since you're established, but we have been really sort of looking at acquisition of property in sort of 5 basic buckets. We mostly want to focus on redevelopment and strategic acquisition. When I say strategic acquisition, I mean assembling parcels in areas where we think we can help spur redevelopment someday, but we're going to have to put a lot of pieces of the puzzle together. Here in a moment, later I'll pull up a map of our current property inventory and talk about where we're trying to acquire property, and we'll talk about sort of assembling property in other areas. The other sort of buckets that we'll touch on as well is infrastructure and liability reduction. Right, we've got some parcels that are going to be handy to our city engineer. We've got one area where a bank is failing our river bank. At some point, they're going to have to get in there and fix it. We've acquired a few parcels there that will give them site control and make it easier for them to repair that bank someday. We've also got another road that we've actually closed to vehicular traffic because it too is failing. Lots of subsidence and ground movement. At some point, we would like to completely decommission that road and look at something like conservation and open space and park amenities. But in the meantime, we really just would prefer folks to not try to pick up a piece of property there and try to build something. It's really not the right place to do that. And then we've got investment preservation. That's really, we're trying to look at what sort of demolition or other fire and refuse liens we might have against the property. If it goes through the tax sale process, our liens are expunged from that property, and so we have to ask ourselves, would getting site control be better, or do we just want to let it go through the process and let the private market address it? In some cases, we've got $10,000 effectively invested in a parcel because we did the demolition on the property. And so, at least having site control lets us determine what happens next, or at least shape what happens next. And then obviously, I think it's pretty common, we're trying to, wherever possible, sort of support conservation work, acquire property next to existing parks and open space in the city, and sort of, grow those amenities in our community. So like I mentioned, most of our property inventory, this chart is a little outdated at this point, but the majority of what we're working with is redevelopment and strategic acquisition. We're trying to assemble parcels or get them redeveloped immediately. And then we've had a lot of luck, at least in our first 3, 4 or so years, acquiring property off of out of that tax delinquency process for open space and recreation. So those parcels next to parks and those sorts of things. That's kind of slowed down because in participation in the tax sale, we never had done that before as in the public interest, I guess. And so there was lots of stuff that we could get early on. Now we're sort of, the opportunities are a little fewer and a little farther between. Our approach to redeploying property is really, we want to try to listen first, right? I know that's what any city planner would say, but, we're trying to listen first. We've door knocked, we've done this sort of desire board idea where, it's actually up at a location right now. We've got a 2-story commercial building that we got through the tax sale process. That same chalkboard, what belongs here, asking the simple question, is up there right now. We just want to hear from people. We pair that with a QR code to an online survey and just try to understand what it is that community would like to see happen on that property. It's important to mention in this picture here, if you all can see that, it says splash pad, it says fruits and veggies and that sort of stuff. On this particular lot, we were really glad to have that input, and we actually settled on working with one of our nonprofit housing partners. They're going to build 2 single-family units in this location. But the idea that recreation in the neighborhood is a real want and desire, this wasn't the right place for that, but we actually, a block and a half from this location, we have an existing city park. We were able to get a splash pad in there. I should say the city was, not the land use agency. So that input really can and should, sort of help steer what the community wants, and we're going to try to meet that need. We're always thinking about highest and best use. We're always thinking about neighborhood fabric, the character of the existing neighborhood, and we want to try to form partnerships. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a while, but we're not the ones that are going to get this stuff back on the tax books. Those are the people that are going to actually become the custodians and owners of this property. So we need to just figure out ways to empower them. But most importantly, and I think this is one of the things that makes land banking quite different from its predecessor, urban renewal, is that we're really interested in outcomes. And I've said this to board members with our urban renewal authority in Charleston, and so I'm not, telling secrets or anything, but, for a long time, our urban renewal authority was very interested in sort of like projects that were at or close to market value. And, I tell our mayor all the time, I'm going to lose money. Like, we're going to lose money on these projects, but we're going to gain a lot of outcome for the community. Whether it be new housing or open space or recreation. So yeah, we are not making money, and I don't think you guys should have any expectations to do that either. Maybe in Morgantown with all the development pressure, you can do that, but we're really trying to again address stuff that the private market can't and won't deal with. Okay, so getting the property back out there into the marketplace. We're really trying to focus on that redevelopment phase or redeployment maybe in the case of conservation property, but we want to make property get back out there just as soon as possible. Some of this work is painfully slow, but we do want to get it back out there. We have had some good luck redeploying property for new housing in Charleston. One of the ways that we have found different from our housing approach, this is another sort of commercial building. We really had to, I think it's important to mention, we again used that, trying to get input, and we put out an RFP, a expression of interest document soliciting proposals for this property, it's a 2-story, 100-year-old brick. It was a corner grocery for years. We put out that call for proposals, and we got none. And I touch on this project, because it's a really good example of sort of going back to the basics of neighborhoods, corner stores, the availability of food and jobs in the neighborhood. But it's also important to point out that the folks that I'm in the picture with there were looking to try to make this project happen, and we kind of became a silent partner on it, and really had to hold hands with them and work with them for months and months and months and months and months just to get to the place where they felt like taking on the building made sense. And so I think I've seen other agencies kind of like this, where they're like, well, we just post property for sale, and that's the end of our involvement in redevelopment. I really encourage you all to think about how can we take a very active role in getting the people that are trying to do good in your community to yes on taking over property, because it did take months to make that happen in this case. But it was a corner grocery. It's a corner grocery again. It's a nonprofit social enterprise, and it was a long troubled bar in the meantime. And so getting it to be a positive force in that neighborhood again is just a real success story. But yeah. Okay. So we're focusing our housing on our approach to rebuilding sort of the fabric of neighborhoods. I mentioned the demolition program and how much demolition has occurred. We've in the past 5 years, we've knocked down more than 500 houses. And so that leaves a lot of missing teeth in our neighborhoods. There are some blocks that we're actually focusing our resources on where they're missing 5, 6, 7 houses out of the block. And so if we don't do something soon, that's going to become sort of irreparable. And then you'll get folks coming in trying to, sort of up zone property to commercial, and that sort of stuff. We don't want that to happen. We want to sort of limit the intrusion into residential neighborhoods as much as possible. But we're really sort of focusing on home ownership opportunities and sort of move-in ready housing. Lots of structures in Charleston use TLC, and we're trying to work with nonprofit organizations. We haven't personally done renovation work as the land use agency ourselves, but we have been really fortunate in partnering with, in this case, an organization called Appalachia Service Project, that's sort of mission-based volunteer renovation, and then our local Habitat chapter, and other sort of nonprofit housing organizations. I'm sorry, did someone say something? And feel free to chime in with questions or anything. Nate?
Where do you get your funding for your agency?
Yeah, good question. Maybe should have mentioned that early on. So we were originally in 2019 capitalized by, if folks remember the water crisis here in the Charleston region, there were some settlement funds that came from the fallout of that water crisis. And so a portion of those settlement funds was our initial capitalization. I think it was $250,000. So that kept us busy for a couple, 3 years. And then pandemic visited us all. And so City Council awarded the Land Use Agency some ARPA funding. So we got $1.5 million from that, the majority of which went to a program which we'll touch on in a moment. The rest of it, I'll talk about how we spent that ARPA fund. And then recently, City Council funded us for the next 2 years with a one-time sort of excess funds at the end of the budget year. So it is, I think, important to say that we don't currently have any ongoing revenue other than sort of transactions. But again, we are really losing money on those transactions of property. And so, yeah, we've basically been funded by one-time shots in the arm of funding from City Council.
How much was that last shot you mentioned? You called it excess funds.
Yeah, the surplus, or I'm not a finance person, so I'm sure that's got a name. Council gave us 600,000 with the charge, with the hope that that will hold us off for 2 years of work, and we're going to be continuing one of the programs that the vast majority of that money will go towards a grant program, which I'll touch on in a moment. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so sort of talking about where that money that has gone, our mayor, Amy Goodwin, challenged the Land Use Agency in her State of the City address that she wanted us basically by the end of 2025, which is coming up real fast at this point, to renovate 5 single-family homes in our existing neighborhoods, build 25 new single-family homes, and turn at least 15 vacant lots through a side lot program back to existing residents and owners. And I'm fortunate to say, because I really need this job, I think we're going to hit all of those benchmarks. But let's talk about what we came up with to do those things. In our toolkit, we developed basically 3-4 really main programs. The biggest sort of money suck became our new construction incentive program, which I can't remember, Ricky and Jessica, if I shared the paperwork on that, but I'm happy to do that. We basically put cash on the arrowhead. We said we need housing, we need it now, and we said if you build a new single-family home and you bring the lot to the table, because we have lots of sort of underutilized property that's in private ownership, and those owners don't see the value proposition in new construction or doing something with it. We wanted to nudge them off center to make something happen on some of those lots, and so that was $35,000. But if it was from our inventory, which we acknowledge are probably some of the more challenged lots, some of them are in shallow floodplains, some of them are just from the neighborhood that they're in, they're less desirable from a housing perspective. We knew that we would need to put extra incentive to make redevelopment happen on those lots, so those were a grant of $50,000. So we can talk about the results of that program in a second. The other sort of approach that we did is we were successful in getting designated as the Build West Virginia Housing Tax Incentive District, and we currently have 3 developers applying and seeking that tax incentive program. I guess the question is that something that Morgantown has done or is looking at doing?
Not at this time, no.
No.
Not that I'm aware.
I encourage you to do it or look into it as something, and I will say that our land use agency and me as a staffer, right, we did that sort of on behalf of the city, and because we saw it as a way to sort of unlock more, finger on the scale of making development make sense on property in the city. So I encourage you to look at that. It's not that difficult. It's an application to nominate your community, and then it does have pretty significant tax incentive benefits. I'm not an expert in this, but basically it amounts to middle teens % of a project incentive. It is not income based, or it can be luxury housing, right? So it doesn't have to be just low income or senior housing or those sorts of things. And so it includes income tax credits and then waiver of sales tax on building materials. So that's not nothing. That adds up to a good deal of incentive, and that's from the state economic development department. The other sort of things that was something we facilitated to tap into state resources, but locally we also did a small revolving loan fund to help our nonprofit housing organizations access really low barrier capital to renovate and essentially flip homes. We've got lots of housing stock, like I said, that needs TLC, and this was designed to empower them to do that. We lend it out at 0% interest, up to $100,000 per unit. There are some income guidelines, but we tried to make it also extended to the moderate sort of place. You know, our block grant office does lots of work on 80% below AMI projects. We, I believe, benchmarked that at 120 or so. I'd have to look back to see exactly what we benchmarked it on, but we wanted it to be more in the workforce housing area. It can obviously still serve low-income folks as well, but we wanted to make it available to moderate income individuals and families as well. And basically how we hope to revolve that money, our first project should be finishing this month. Any proceeds above what we lent them, 80% of that goes to the nonprofit organization so they can drive some sort of entrepreneurship in their programming, and then 20% along with the principal would return back to the fund. Hopefully we can keep revolving that back out and back out and back out. So to mention the new construction incentive program and the revolving loan fund, those were capitalized with ARPA funds. And so between those two programs, that 1.5 million seems like, oh yeah, you guys are real rich at this point. No, 1.3 of that went to these two programs. And so the incentive program, those are grants, so that money goes out the door and we never see it again, but we hopefully achieve some good housing. The revolving loan fund, my hope is that we get to, at least cycle that in and out a few times and make it sort of echo through our housing stock a few times before that money might disappear. The other sort of tool that we created was a side lot program. We've got some lots that we acquired through the delinquent tax sale process that are, not prime for redevelopment. They're steep, they're very small, they're, just undesirable from a redevelopment perspective. But the neighbor that lives next door very well could have been mowing it for the last 15 years and would love some off-street parking or a place to put a swing set for their kids or whatever it may be. And we have moved, I think it's coming up on 20 lots out of that program into the hands of existing owners. We did have to figure out ways to work on sort of zero-cost lease agreements because we had some residents who really wanted the side yard but were in a rent-to-own contract for the property that they resided in. And so we're not going to transfer real property to them until they are in fact also the real property owner. So, we've learned a lot through that program, but I think largely it's been very successful, and it helps morale, I think, for existing residents that they are feeling more empowered in their neighborhood, and they feel like they have a larger stake in making their block look better. And so that's been very successful.
So John, did you...
Go ahead.
Did you charge anything, or did you just give them away for free?
Yeah, so we, for owner occupants, we charge them $200, and that basically covers the fee to draft the deed and recordation. And for non-owner occupants, that can be, rental property or commercial property, we charge $500. So, again, we're still losing money, but in these circumstances, they don't have a lot of redevelopment potential, so just getting them in the hands of someone that's going to care for it, pay the taxes, mow the grass, keep it from getting jumped up and litter, all over it. That's what we're after. The money is really not what we were worried about at that point, because our average acquisition cost, varies. From the no bid process, it's probably $600 to $700 per lot. And for properties that we buy that aren't in the no bid process, it can vary a lot, but it's going to be a few $1,000s at least, $1,500 to $2,000 at the very minimum. So we're losing money, but getting it out of that sort of cycle and whirlpool of decline is really what we're after. But like I mentioned earlier, partnering with our nonprofit friends and building collaboration, with our for-profit folks is really what we're after. And again, what's it going to be at the end of the day, is what we're worried about. The money sort of, at least so far, we have the political support to make that secondary. And I think that is part of the reason that we've had some success, is because if your political leadership thinks that this is going to become self-sustaining or self-funding, that's really not feasible. If it was going to be self-funding, the private market would have done this, and you guys wouldn't need to be a land use agency at all. Yeah. Any questions about that stuff before we sort of touch on sort of a little bit more on each of the programs? No? How are we for time? I don't want to monopolize all your meeting. I'm sure you have business to attend to.
We do, actually, yeah.
Okay.
Just a few more minutes, probably.
Let me go a little further. I can share this slide deck with you all, but I'll touch on the report card again. So we have, so far, we have completed one complete renovation. We've got 3 in progress, and we've got 2 more slated for this summer. So that's going to get us to our 5. Remember the mayor's challenge. In the new construction area, we've got, actually, I've got an application for a 14th one right now. We've got 11 or 12 others in progress, and we've got 2 more slated for this summer. And so that's going to get us up and over that charge of 25 for new homes. And like I said, these numbers are maybe a month or 2 out of date. We're coming up on 20 side lots that we've returned to existing owners. So, yeah, okay. Well, I'll let you guys get back to it. Are there any questions? Didn't mean to talk at you guys. Let's if there are any questions, I'm happy to just have a conversation.
Hey, John, this is Ricky. Just 2 quick follow-up questions. On the complete builds, are those new builds? And did they utilize those different programs that you referenced in your presentation?
Yes, the new construction, one of them was funded by the block grant.
Okay.
It's complete. 2 others that are going to be coming up this summer are also block grant projects through a CHODO organization. The other ones are a mishmash. We've got the 24 others that were part of the new construction incentive program. So that's that grant program that we developed with ARPA funds. 2 of which were our local Habitat chapter, and the remainder were private developers, which was really exciting. And so we've got some folks doing small homes. We've got other folks that have done some modular manufactured units, and we've got a couple that did sort of, we've got one sort of owner-occupant that got involved with the program, and we've had some other ones that are just private developers building homes that for now are going to be rentals. And so, so that new construction, I think that when we developed the program, we had no idea if it was going to, was anyone going to interact with the program. We ended up having a lot of interest, and that was really encouraging because it made us realize that, the gap, the barrier to new development was not as large as we thought. And keep layering in the Build West Virginia stuff and, continuing a more modest new construction incentive program in the future will probably help us on an ongoing way continue to help close that gap between cost of construction and what the market will bear from a sales perspective.
That's great. And can I assume that they were all LRA owned lots?
No, it was also a mixed bag. Out of that new construction incentive program, it was roughly 50-50.
Okay.
LRA lots and ones that the private market brought to the table. And like I said, that's okay because those were still vacant lots. Someone might have been mowing them and they were paying the taxes, but they were still a vacant lot in a neighborhood. So having convincing those owners to do something rather than nothing for another year was still a real big win for those neighborhoods that got that development.
For the ones that were the LRA loan lots, was there language in the deed or developer agreement that they had to build a certain type of product or a certain type of housing in order for the agency to turn it over to them?
So not in the deed. So we did it in the program rules, basically, if you want the reimbursement, so it was a reimbursable item,
Okay.
right? So you build the thing, you get the CFO, and then we cut you a check, and, that gave us the power to say, no, you got to do it this way. But we very, very purposefully made it a pretty open and flexible program, at least this first round. We are working on developing a second round, which will probably be more modest reimbursement rates and might have some of those work performance standards that you're getting at, Ricky.
Okay.
To sort of steer folks in a direction for a product that is more what we want. We really kind of left it fairly wide open at this point.
Okay.
First round.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other questions that I can jump in before you guys get to your actual business?
Did you have one?
No, would you be okay if we followed up with you by email after you send the PowerPoint?
Yeah, very, very glad to do that. I'll send the PowerPoint to Ricky just now, and yeah, if any other questions come up, just fire them back an email. Happy to, if it wants to be a group email, the entire board, gets to have the luxury of seeing, that's fine. If you guys want to just, have one-on-one conversations, I'm happy to do that. But you guys are doing good work. I expect that, you'll find your way in Morgantown, and thank you for being very gracious with your time today.
Thanks so much, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, sir. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
He was missing a session. He didn't think it was too interesting to miss a session to do that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that was very nice of them.
All right, I'm going to speed through some of these things on the agenda here so we can try to get through.
Okay.
Anyone have reports from committees or officers? Okay. Ryan, report?
Nothing unless you have questions or anything additional you wanted to just follow up.
We might when we get down to the old business, but not generally.
Sure.
Ricky, do you have a report?
No, nothing outside of what's on the agenda.
All right, so we have minutes from the March meeting that we need to approve. Just need a motion for that. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, those are approved. All right, so I guess we do have you first. First on the unfinished is the update on the demolition for, we had 570, 635, 641 Penn Ave, and 637 East Brockway. There may be both of you.
Yeah, so the update is the draft is pretty much complete. What we're waiting on is an asbestos inspection report from 635 Pennsylvania Avenue. We're also waiting for Urban Design Ventures to submit a historic preservation inventory form to SHPO for 570 and 637 Brockway Avenues. And that's needed in order to utilize the DLAP funds, the West Virginia DEP DLAP funds.
So SHPO hasn't even gotten a chance to look at it yet.
Yeah, they looked at it, and what happens is they when they sent their response, they said that there was going to be potentially an adverse impact, and so the city had to do more mitigation in order to resolve the issue. And the way that they do that is they make us fill out, and we work with Urban Design Ventures on a historic HPI form.
Okay.
So those two, there's still two that UDV is going to need to submit, but the projection is we'll be able to get the bid out in mid to late May for those three properties.
Okay. All right, so then we've got donation. We've got 612 Arlington, 300 Overdale, and 121 Kingwood, and 1994 Lestravia, and all the Berthier estates. So I guess if you could tell us sort of where we are in this graphic for each of those, that would be helpful.
Sure. So the property owners have been notified, as I stated previously, and then Ryan and I just had a conversation, and Ryan reached back out to the property owners. So it's really kind of in their court. They need to communicate with the city attorney's office to get that ball rolling. So
That's for 612?
for 612 and for 300 Overdale. 121 Kingwood, Ryan could talk maybe more about the particulars, about the title issues, but we are still looking to proceed with demolition. The city's code office has already placarded the property and provided certified notice, and we've gotten those back, so we plan to move forward with demolition, even though we may not have it yet at this time.
Okay.
1994 Lestravia, again, I'm not sure if the property owners made contact with the city attorney's office, but we'll reach out again to them. And that was the property on Lestravia where it was a vacant lot, and
So I guess my question is, they came to us, they said they wanted to donate it, and now we're waiting for them to say it again, or what's the, I mean, what are we waiting for from them?
For the 3 properties that we've set our negotiation, right?
No, I mean, 612 was the guy that came here and presented and said he wanted to donate, and we said, we'll take it.
This is Mike Hodge, correct? Yeah, and so he wanted the city to release its liens on the property and for him not to pay any costs of transfer associated with that. It was forwarded to me last week, I think, or the week before. I followed up with an email to you, Ricky, and city management to confirm they would meet those conditions, got approval, and so we could begun title on that property. He's agreeable to transferring.
Okay.
The other you mentioned,
300 Overdale?
yeah, have just not responded to my emails to contact them after I received their contact information. 121 Kingwood needs to be redeemed by the property owner if they've declined to do that.
So then I guess the discussion if, would the agency want to step in or to do that or to...
So if,
The agency can't
Okay.
redeem the property. If it's certified to the auditor, you have the option to purchase it
From the
auditor.
Okay.
and how
That's-
much do you purchase it for the back taxes, or?
If it's certified to the auditor, they'll hold the public auction now, and I will give you all the update on this process at your May meeting as we discussed it. They'll hold the auction now. If it's not sold, then the auditor can sell it without collecting all of the back taxes, and so you can get it for a much lower price potentially.
Can the agency participate at the sale?
Yeah, they have rights of first refusal and can participate at the sale both.
Okay. So maybe we need to explore that option?
Yes,
In
please.
order to, otherwise it could be sold to somebody else, correct? I think
Yeah,
so.
if we have right of first refusal, we should definitely get in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is the notification process. I'll have to update on that. The formerly the county handled where they were obligated to give the agency a list sometime before the auction was held, which is exactly when that time was, and when something was either not redeemed enough for sale was kind of up for debate. I don't know how much you all participated in that discussion. I know Dave did. But yeah, we can talk to whomever is in charge of giving that notice now about resuming that notice to the agency, so you can look at that list.
Yes.
Pick out your preferred properties. And you would have the opportunity to participate at the auctions when they're held. Can be a good option you can negotiate with the auditor's office and purchase property that is not sold at those auctions.
Okay. So just in case you didn't hear it, Ryan's going to give us a whole summary of that process at the next meeting, so we know what we need to
Thank
do
you,
there.
sir.
It will be much less impressive than the Charleston Land Reuse Agency slide.
It's okay.
Going back to 300 Overdale, so do you need help trying to find this individual, Mr. Barefoot, or?
All I've done is I got forwarded an email from Ricky with their contact, and I've sent 2 emails to say, I understand you want to donate the property.
And he initially responded with one word, yes. He has it and he was aware, but nothing's been done since then, so.
So the next step for him would be to complete the form?
And he's already completed the application and the agency's already approved it with conditions. Now they need to reach out to Ryan and,
But what does he
Yeah,
waiting
what does he
for?
need to say to
Do the
Ryan?
deed, right?
Yep.
That's what we're talking about.
So then
Do the deed.
shouldn't we just start the title exam? I mean, if he wants to do it,
Yeah, he submitted the form, so what does he need to,
we can.
We should at least have the title search done. and see-
yeah, I mean, I don't see what we're waiting for then.
Okay.
if he said yes to Ryan, what else does he need?
He said yes to me. He acknowledged what he needed to do next, and that was it.
Yeah.
So,
He needs to contact Ryan
correct.
directly.
For,
Do you know him?
I don't mind.
So that he can prepare the deed for the transaction.
okay.
Well, the title exam first, and
Yeah,
then,
of course.
yeah.
If all you all want done is prepare the deed, I can certainly just do that.
Well, it's not so useful to us, I think. We want to have,
I'm just saying, I want to be,
yeah.
I want to, your option, and you have it, but yeah, I think that makes sense.
I think going forward with, and Caitlin passed this out, with the process that we talked about, is that if the agency approves an application for donation and conditions it on, no liens, defects associated with the property, that would trigger two things. One, it would basically authorize the city attorney to do the title exam, regardless if there's contact, right? And if the title exam comes back clean, then we move to a closing. And you would be authorizing the expenses associated with that at that time. If there is something in the title that comes up, then we would come back to the board and look at maybe, here's the situation, here's what needs to be done to resolve the issues. Is there anything that the agency can do to mitigate it or remedy the title issues? So that's the process that's up to the board, but that's the process we were thinking about
I
moving
didn't get a
forward.
copy of that. If I did, I lost it. Do you have that?
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think so. And Rick ran through it with me with the comments, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that sounds good.
But that's what the agency's authorization would do.
Okay. And then the Berthier estate, we're still waiting for, what's his name to get back to you?
So my understanding now is that George Armstead is going to transfer work on that to Jeff Arnett rather than to Steve Crown.
Not
Well, the
sure
city-
which is better, but, okay,
But the city,
okay.
the city and agency were granted the authority to go in and access the property and to do sampling for asbestos, and that's being done.
Okay.
Yep.
And Lestravia, I'm sorry if you already said that.
Yeah, I have to reach back out to the property owner. They were supposed to reach out to the city attorney's office, and that hasn't happened apparently, so I will reach back out.
So they
to
haven't
them.
agreed to transfer, but I thought they already had.
The agency already approved it with conditions.
Should we just,
Call that one off, and I'll check and get back.
I do remember, we've seen that one several times.
Yeah.
So should we just go ahead and do the exam? Let's go ahead.
Okay.
So are we paying for these title exams?
Yes.
The agency pays for the title exams?
We sure are, and we're paying out of our regular bank account.
Is that right?
Why is that just a function of the city attorney staff? I mean, I don't understand why.
Because they don't want to fund this agency. And I think that was some very interesting information from him, how...
I think we need to check with Mr. Davis too, because there was a response in an email chain that was going.
He did
so-
respond, and he said proceed. He did not address the funding question, and then I think that we were told we're spending our own money. That's what I gathered from that exchange.
I believe that, this is why I said the email to everyone involved, but I believe the city's paying the cost of it.
That's, yeah.
That is not what I got
We
from
have
that.
the separate engagement letter executed with the city for those costs.
Oh,
was-
excellent, okay.
That was my end.
I think for the ARPA projects, their discussion was to have those charged against the ARPA funds that have now been allocated to the agency with that supplemental.
Okay. I just want us all to come together here. I felt like what he said there was that they have political support, and this is an agency of their city. Yes,
They have some other factors that we don't have.
right, like we are not some other body,
Primarily, Michael, the elected mayor gave them objective criteria. So they've got to focus.
Yes, I mean, like, that is what we've been looking for the whole time. And then you come back and try to achieve those goals together. I mean, I don't know how we get there, but that's what we need to,
My suggestion, Jessica, is we make our own goals.
well, I think that's what we're working on. Yeah,
And measurable goals.
that is what we're working on.
Just a clarification on the title exams, if they're ARPA related, then it would be charged to the ARPA funds, but if it's outside of that, right?
Yes.
Then it would be charged to the,
So the donations process, or properties are all going to be city funded, and then we're paying for our acquisitions.
okay, all right.
We're just going to confirm with you and with the city manager's office before doing any of that, so there's no...
That would be great.
You all had, obviously, issues about that before, so we'll just
Yes.
make sure before we do it every time.
Okay.
It doesn't take any extra time to do that.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so Spruce Center, I know we've executed only one lease so far, so do we have an idea of, like, is there
Yes.
any way to get that out more?
So Brad Stevens has moved into, we executed a lease and he's moving into that office. The Housing Authority has relocated to their new suite of offices, and I was there on Wednesday and met with Crystal and had a good conversation, but she's very happy with the process, with the new location and everybody that was involved in making that move possible, and thank the agency for working with them on that space. One question did come up is that one of the tenants wants to look at other internet options. Staff doesn't really have an issue with allowing other providers. I know initially we brought that to the board and you all weighed in about should we stick with the 2 providers or not. Okay. If there's no,
I was more asking, how are we gonna rent this space? I mean, if it's been put out and it's not rented, do we have any other ideas about how to get the word out, or any ideas about possible tenants? Does the city have another need for space that we could, put someone in there? Like, what are we gonna do with
How many
this?
vacancies are you talking?
we have 1, 2,
Majority of the
3,
built
4,
space.
5 or 6 spaces. I mean, we can work to push it out. I know the communications team obviously did that first round. We're working, or need to work with MAP to get that up information to them and up on whatever resource that they have available that they could share it, but we can probably push it out a little bit more. But, go
Let's
ahead.
do that.
Okay.
I mean, if we can do another push, I mean, I think we should do that every month until we get some more. All right, so the strategic plan, we took the document that Chris gave us, we reorganized and put some numbers on it, and then put everything in order. Several of these are the entire board, some of them are specific committees. So I was thinking what we could do is take everything that's, for a specific committee, have that list be presented at the next committee meeting, and then you all can break those down into tasks so that we have a to-do list to go with this. If you have other ideas, please share.
I think that's great, Brenda.
And Caitlin's agreed to go ahead, and we're going to transpose this into another format other than an Excel spreadsheet. And then we're also working with communications to see if we can get an online platform where we could track this, and that the board and staff could share that information and give updates as things are being worked on. So Caitlin's taking the lead on that, and she'll be also working in your committees to kind of plan out the next phase of this implementation plan. So the next couple of committee meetings, will be the focus.
What I understand you're looking for is a task list for each of these objectives.
Yeah,
assigned to-
exactly. So to transfer this broad goals to actual to-dos.
Yep.
All right, so I think that's all on that, unless anyone has questions. All right. The data collection on the properties in Lower Greenmont, so that was,
So we have the template started, and we've seen that. We reached out to UDV and asked them to provide us with more input in terms of what they would need to see in a condition needs assessment that could later be used to apply for a designation of that area as a revitalization area with HUD. So we haven't heard back yet, but we're working through that. Once we get those criteria or things that we need to look at, then the team will disperse and go out and start collecting the information that's needed. But we are going through, and Caitlin already did a good job about working through, like, finding out if it's rental or not, and if it's vacant or not, and pulling that information from our existing resources.
okay,
So,
cool. So what's the goal for the completion of that?
Once we get the information, I would probably say it's going to be a month or 2 before we can go through all of that, but we need to figure out exactly what we're asking for, or what we
Well,
need for it.
can we set a deadline for it so that we can have
Let's do-
something to shoot for?
Sure, can we do 60 days?
And that would be what,
It'd be the May, June meeting. Mhm.
That'd be great. And then you were going to check with Chris on the CDBG funding that we met about to see if it's,
Yeah, I checked with Robin Hess, our grant writer. Nothing's been committed yet. She's working to put that project maybe into DRGR, which is an online platform with HUD. But either way, it could be potentially funded with a substantial amendment to the CDBG program, or it could be funded through the $2 million congressional direct spending. But nothing's been decided yet at this point, my understanding in talking to Robin today.
so I thought we were asking, like, is it technically possible to use CDBG funding to, like, do something with that green space?
Yes,
Not-
it is possible, yes.
And there's just some hoops we have to jump through?
Nothing's been allocated, but yes, it is possible.
What are you saying over there?
I don't know, I haven't been part of this discussion.
That was from talking to
But we had
Robin.
that meeting with Chris because Robin wasn't sure. So did Chris answer that question and now we know for sure, or?
Robin answered, well, I talked to Robin. I didn't talk to Chris.
But she got the answer that she was looking for from Chris, you think, or?
I don't know if she talked to Chris, but that's the answer I was given when I asked.
All right.
We can follow up
What do we
again.
need
but
to
that
do to
was-
figure out the answer to this question?
I will have to, I can follow up with Chris, but.
I mean, because I think we all want to do something with this green space. So I guess my question is, she has funding, can we use it? How do we know when we
She
can
said
start?
yes, right?
Yeah, yes, there's two ways it could be, the project could be funded. Either through a substantial amendment to the CDBG program, which basically is a reallocation of funding from one project to another in different funding years, or it could be done potentially through the $2 million congressional direct spending allocation. But again, there hasn't been, to my knowledge, a formal plan set up for how those funds will be used.
But there is a plan. I mean, she put together that whole, like, application for the 2 million that
Right,
does
and I
not
don't know
include
that,
this.
I don't know the status of that application or how the funds were allocated within that application.
But I'm saying I do, and
Oh.
this is not in there.
Okay.
So.
I have not seen it, so I apologize.
That's okay. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, like, what's the next step for us to get the CDBG funding? If that's an eligible thing and we want to make something happen with this green space, what do we need to do next?
I think we should probably schedule a meeting with Damien and Robin and have that discussion about where the funds would come from, because I don't know where they would come from right now.
Okay, but I feel like that's the meeting that we already had with Robin and Chris. They were going to go out and they were going to find the answer to this question. So maybe I need to do an email to Chris and Robin and see what the answer is for this.
Could I suggest, if
Yeah.
they've determined that you need a substantial plan amendment to use those CDBG funds for the project, then UDB needs to prepare that and present it. They just need direction to do that if they haven't started already.
Okay.
Right. That is correct, but I don't think the decision's been made about whether that,
Who do they get
would?
direction from
Yeah.
to do that?
I assumed it was Rob, but I guess maybe not. Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to check with Robin and Chris then.
Substantial plan amendment would have to be approved by city council.
right,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
I'm sorry, I have to run. Do you all need anything else from me?
Nope,
For
we're
adjournment?
done. I think that's it. We just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you,
Sorry,
sir.
Ricky.
See you in a bit.
I don't mean to berate you.